So Galarian Zapdos in Pokemon Sword and Shield has pretty good overall stats with a 90 in its health and both defenses. So it's pretty good. It can take a couple hits, 100 in its speed and 125 attack. So it has pretty good attack with pretty good speed. They're not the greatest. It's not the fastest, the most hard hitting things, but they're workable. And 85 special attack is decent overall. But its ability is Defiant, which is really good, especially if you can especially against Dynamax Pokemon, especially if you can like switch in on a Dynamax bug move, which will like lower your special attack, and you get a Defiant boost, so you get a free +2, or Intimidate's a free +1, and things like that. So you can play around Defiant. It's a really good ability for a physical attacker. And Zapdos' typing is Fighting, Flying, which you have a good amount of weaknesses, but you also have a good amount of resistances. You're weak to Flying, Electric, Psychic, Ice, and Fairy. You're immune to Ground, but you resist Fighting, Bug, Grass, and Dark. And that's why I said if you can switch in on like a Dark or a Bug Dynamax move, you can play around that and get a free Defiant boost and get that. One thing about Galarian Zapdos though is its special move coverage is terrible. Like if you look at its special moves, this is all it learns. So Ancient Power, Hurricane, and Hyper Beam, really. So even though it has 85 special attack, it's useless because you have so few moves. You don't even have a stab fighting move. You don't even have a stab fighting move, so it is what it is. But one way to run Galarian Zapdos is just max health, or max attack, max speed, Jolly, because you need as much speed as possible with this, especially because you have Life Orb, so you're always losing 1/10 of your health. Plus Brave Bird has recoil damage, Close Combat lowers your attack, and then I like Throat Chop and Blaze Kick for coverage. Especially Blaze Kick though, 85. Now you have 90 accuracy, but 85 base power is really good with a high crit ratio. And pretty much what you want to do with this Zapdos is you either want to come in and try to get a Defiant boost if you can, or just come out and just finish off a lot of opponents that have low health. Let's say you have a Sticky Web or something set up so you outspeed, and you just come through and take everything out with Dual Stab, Close Combat, Brave Bird. You have to be careful though, because at some point you'll pretty much take yourself out with Brave Bird. You actually have a good amount of health. So recoil from Brave Bird isn't the worst thing. Like you can survive at least 2 Brave Birds. Like if you one-shot some things, because your health is good enough, you can survive taking the recoil from Brave Bird plus the Life Orb. But another way to run Zapdos is Endure, Salac Berry. So what you pretty much want to do is, again, because Zapdos has such high, like it has average defenses and since it also doesn't have a 4x weakness, you can kind of play around it. And with this one, for example, take a hit and then hit him with a Blaze Kick, and then Endure, get the Salac Berry to proc, so you get a +1 speed, and that's why it's Adamant. And you want to get on to 1 hit points, 1 health, that way you can get the Salac Berry, so you have +1 speed, Adamant attack. Reversal will have 200 base power. Acrobatics will do 110 because you ate the Salac Berry. Blade Kick's good coverage, and you also have the Defiant, so even if they lower one of your stats, especially if you Endure, and like you can play around this too, even when you're at 1 hit points, to Endure, take a hit, and then have Defiant proc if they use a move like, especially if they Dynamax or something like that, you can kind of play around it. Or you just know they're going to use a move that can lower one of your stats, and you just Endure, they lower a stat, like they lower one of your defenses or lower your special attack, whatever. You get a free Defiant boost. Like if they use Moonblast or something, get the free Defiant boost and then do a lot of damage after that. But another way to run Zapdos is a more gimmicky set, and what you want to do is Agility, take a hit, and then Endure, get the Landslide Berry, which gives you the Focus Energy effect, so it raises your crit hit chance by 2. So all of your moves, Reversal and Acrobatics have a 50% chance to crit. And again, Reversal will have 200 base power. And if that crits, that's pretty much a one-shot on all non-resisted. Like if they don't resist Reversal or they're not immune, that's a lot of damage, and you'll probably one-shot them. You do have to be careful with both of these. Sashes, for example, are a problem. Acrobatics, again, 110 base power and a 50% chance to crit is really good. And like you have a 50% chance to crit, so with 110 base power and 200, so it's going to do a lot of damage. And if you can get the Defiant to boost, even better. Again, same with the Endure, you can try to get the Defiant, but you got to be careful with priority a lot, or just something really fast like the Electric Reggie. The Electric Reggie will just outspeed you and KO you, even with the agility, I think, because he's just that fast, especially if he has a speedy nature. So you have to be careful of things like that, but if you get a crit, you're doing a ton of damage. And this is a Dynamax Zapdos, Brave Bird raises your speed, close combat raises your attack. So when it comes down to the nature, it's up to you. I like the Jolly nature just in case you need that little bit of speed to outspeed something later. But you can run Adamant. But I like the Jolly in case you don't get a Brave Bird off, or a giant, or a Dynamax Max Airstream. But again, close combat, Blaze Kick. I like the coverage, good damage, and in this last slot you can run either Throat Chop, Stomping Tantrum, or Steel Wing, just depending on what you want in that last spot. Steel Wing is good for fairies. Throat Chop and Ground's just good coverage, and Throat Chop is pretty good too for ghost types. So it's kind of what you need. Life Orb and Defiance really good while Dynamaxed, again, especially if they Dynamax and they hit you with a move, or they just hit you with a move to try to lower your stats. Defiance is really good for that free +2, and you can kind of offset it. And that's another reason why I like having the Jolly nature, is because of Defiant, if you can get it to proc. But the biggest thing that's holding Zapdos back, Galarian Zapdos, is it doesn't really have very good move coverage. Again, like it has 2 moves. So 2 moves that you really can use, and then Hyper Beam. So like, especially it proves it has no coverage. But even physically, you have pretty much the 4 moves, that's why all these movesets are pretty much the same. Because you pretty much have these moves and that's it. And physically, you can also run counter, because you have enough health to where they hit you with a neutral move, you'll survive. You could counter it back and one-shot them, because you have a lot of health. You have a decent amount of health, so if they hit you for half your health, that's going to be about 300. It's going to be, what, 320 back. It'll be your full health. If they hit you for half health, you'll hit them back for about 320, which is a lot of damage. Pluck is not very good. Like, the other thing is it learns a lot of moves that just have low base power. Drill Peck, why would you run Drill Peck when you have Dual Wing Beat and Acrobatics? And there's a lot of moves that are better than Drill Peck. Thunderous Kick, its signature move is Thunderous Kick, which lowers their defense by 1. But even then, like, it's not the greatest move, because it's like, okay, cool, you could do this, but you can also run the Close Combat, which is more damage, or the Reversal in certain situations. So Thunderous Kick it's not terrible, but Close Combat is better in most situations. Ancient Power again is useless. You could also do a different set with this, with Focus Energy, but you have to get rid of Agility, which at that point I don't really like that, because you can probably run Salac, but then you only get +1 speed. You get the same Focus Energy effect, but you only have +1 speed instead of +2. So it's like a worse version of that set. Quick Guard and doubles is not bad. Bulk Up, but I mean, it raises your attack and defense, but it doesn't really matter all that much. But if you go down to like, even down here, even though like TMs and TRs, it doesn't have the greatest coverage. Again, Facade, like you have Steel, Fighting, Flying, Dark, and Stomping Tantrum, and Blaze Kick. So it's like you have the 3 moves that you normally use, and then Throat Chop, between Throat Chop, Stomping Tantrum, Steel Wing, like even Steel Wing, the normal moves, and really Stomping Tantrum. They all have 75 base power Stomping Tantrum, but the rest have less than 70. So it's not the greatest. I think it learns Retaliate, so if you switch it in, that'll have 140 base power. But that's why I like the Blaze Kick so much, and the Throat Chop. They're the highest damaging moves after that. And plus, also with Throat Chop, if you outspeed, they can't use a sound move. So that's also a really good thing, especially if they were going to use like a Boom Burst or something like that. You can get rid of it. Hurricane is, again, no special coverage. Light Screen is whatever. Light Screen, I thought it learned Reflect, I guess it doesn't. You're slow, you're really, Taunt is better on Taunt. You're kind of slow for Taunt, so it's kind of whatever. But it also learns Dual Wing Beat, Coaching's whatever. It has Dual Wing Beat, so you can make use of that. Like, in case you don't want to run Brave Bird, if you don't want to take the recoil, you can run Dual Wing Beat. And if you don't want to lower your stats, you can run Thunderous Kick. But, I mean, Thunderous Kick kind of works out with Close Combat. If it takes 2 Close Combats to KO them, 2 Thunderous Kicks will do the same thing, because it lowers their defense. So it'll even out damage-wise. U-turn, it's not the greatest move. But that's the biggest thing about Zapdos, the Galarian. It just doesn't have very much coverage. Like, it has maybe 5 moves that it can really use and make use of. Like, you pretty much know the coverage it's going to use. So 2 Stab, Dark, Fire, and then maybe Steel. Maybe Steel for fairies. Stomping Tantrums, whatever, is a move. because I think it doubles if it misses, or if the move fails. Yeah, if it fails, but there's not many times. Zapdos doesn't really learn any moves that could fail, but that's how to use Galarian Zapdos in Pokemon Sword and Shield.